CLSA. Laurence, it's always a pleasure to welcome you on the program. Thanks very much for your time. So how are you looking at things as we grind into the end of the year, Laurence? How are global setups looking, US setups looking, index setups looking, and where's the Nifty place for you?
Yeah, so we're still looking at further gains into the new year. The surprise really being an overshoot of the 200-day moving average for the S&P. So we're still looking at a 4,200 upside target on the S&P. And then for the Nifty, we're still on track looking at that 20,185 upside target into the new year. So we think these trends continue to extend and surprise on the upside. For the US market, though, we still think this is still a bear market rally rather than the start of something more significant. But near-term risk is to the upside and towards the 4,300 area on the S&P.
Okay, so you said 20,185 is your Nifty target, right? I didn't get the timeline. By when do you expect that target to come through?
We're looking at that into January, February, so start of the new year.
Okay, so start of the new year, the Nifty could hit 20,180. Will it squarely be led by banks again? Because the bank Nifty is at a record high as well. Or do you see new leadership emerge?
I mean, we've stuck with banks as the key driver for the Nifty's uptrend, and that really hasn't changed. We do see some laggard potential in the IT sector. If you look at the broader IT sector chart, you've got a double bottom, which you're emerging from. So we think there's some catch-up trade there, but the key leadership group is Nifty. The other sector where we can see some breakout potential is the Nifty infrastructure sector.
Hi, Laurence. The headline index for us has been doing very, very well. And I like the target that you've given from a bullish perspective on the Nifty. The problem is the breadth of the market hasn't really improved. And that still has to do some catch up. On the small cap index as well as the mid cap index, do you have some targets out there? Will they participate now?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. About a week and a half ago, we actually saw the small cap index breakout as well as the mid cap index. Now, both those indices, if you look at it relative to the Nifty, have underperformed for roughly 10 months. And those relative charts are starting to come showing improvement. And we think the breakouts in absolute terms for both Nifty small caps and the Nifty mid cap is one of those laggard trades that plays catch up into year end. So, slightly more upside, roughly 3% more in the small cap index into year end versus the Nifty's target. So, yes, we think that does play catch up.
Got that. Laurence, do you want to get into, dive into what you like here, sectorally in India, which, some of what you discussed, but a little deeper stocks that you think are the best, are placed the best way in terms of setups?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't talk stocks, but we can obviously focus on the key sectors. And, it remains banks. And within banks, if we have to get more granular, it's the private sector banks, which are underperforming the public banks. So if I look at the PSU Banks Index versus the Nifty Banks Index, that's really been the key outperformer since 2021, and we think that continues. So if you had to get more granular within the banks, public sector banks stand out. And then I think a fresh breakout that's starting to develop, it comes from the infrastructure space. And if I had to break that down further, the property developers look really interesting as longer term leadership coming from property developers, but also from the telco side. So we've seen some broadening of that participation coming from infrastructure.
Okay, so you're still gunning for the banks. How about IT? It's had a really rough ride this year. Do you see the fortunes change?
Not as far as long-term leadership, but as far as a mean reversion trade into year-end, yes, we can see a bit of a catch-up trade there. But think of that more as a mean reversion trade rather than returning to strong leadership. We think that remains with the banks.
Okay, all right. Laurence, one sector that's done very well has been the auto index. But now suddenly in the last month or so, I've seen some bit of an underperformance is taking place on the auto index. What's your sense on this front? On a fundamental side, some of those positives are in the price. Where do you see this one headed?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. There's basically two sectors where you'd want to be taking profits, and autos is one of them. If you look at the sector chart, you've got the double top pattern, you've got slowing upside momentum. Some of the key stocks have already rolled over, breaking below the lows that they set up in October. So we think that's a space that you can take profits in and rotate into the likes of infrastructure or even IT as that laggard trade. And the other sector is fast-moving consumer goods, where we've also seen slowing upside momentum double top resistance, and it's another sector where you want to be taking profits.
Got that. Laurence, your view on oil, extremely bearish setups, you know. Yesterday we saw that 3% pop only to be sold into, I think it's a bearish outside day once again, the second in the last 5 days. What are your targets?
Yeah, so what we've seen in Brent is basically the day after Thanksgiving, we saw a break below $85. You know, that had been the floor for Brent over the past 6 months. That breakdown basically gives us a downside target towards the $65 to $67 area. So again, back to the December and April 2021 lows. So we think there is downside risk, and 85 to 88 now becomes the new resistance area for Brent.
Since you are expecting the possibility of a bear market in the US, do you think that could threaten your Nifty target of 20,180? Or will the Nifty continue to be resilient irrespective of what happens across the globe?
Yeah, so I mean, I think having another pullback towards the end of the first quarter, start of the second quarter next year will likely pull back the Nifty, but we're not expecting the Nifty to retest the lows that it made mid-year. And we think we'll hold in a more resilient pattern, outperforming US as it's done through the corrective phases this year.
All right, Laurence, final question before we let you go. Then the dollar index, you know, that's come off considerably from that 115 odd mark. And on a day-to-day basis, it's been moving lower, currently holding at around 104.5. Where's that one headed?
Yeah, so I think into the new year, we test the 100 area to 101. That's basically the 2017-2020 highs. You know, if we're right that we do see a corrective period after a first quarter peak in equity markets, we think the dollar can rebound again. But we're unlikely to go back to 115. We think a peak around the 110 area and any rebound in the first quarter of 2023. And that's likely to develop a major topping pattern for the dollar by the end of 2023. We think the dollar index could be trading closer to that 95 area on that type of topping profile.
All right, Laurence, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for your quick chat and your view on the markets. That's Laurence Balanco of CLSA, expecting the Nifty to hit 20,180 by Jan or Feb of next year. So he's quite bullish, but he's saying that there is a bear market rally that continues in the US, and over there things could perhaps get worse. So, well, dividing views on both global and the Indian markets. Let's slip into a quick break. On the other side of the break, our entire research team will be with us to help us with a list of top 10 stocks. Stay tuned.